Welcome to the Short Movie channel. The film starts with a gang of three young people: Rocky, Monty, Rocky's boyfriend, and Alex, their third friend. The gang is in one of the wealthy houses where they steal whatever they can, as long as it doesn't exceed $10,000. This is so that if the police catch them, their punishment will be lighter, as law that any theft over $10,000 carries a 10-year prison sentence. After completing the theft, they leave the house together, talking on their way about their future plans. Rocky says she's saving money to move to California with Monty and her younger sister, and that once she leaves, she won't come back. Alex shows sadness, as he has feelings for Rocky. When she offers for him to come along, he declines, saying he can't leave his parents. Alex returns home quietly, goes to his father's office, and puts back the keys to the house they robbed. We learn here that Alex's father works for a major security company and has copies of the keys to all the homes his company secures, which makes it easier for Alex to rob the wealthy. Meanwhile, Monty sells the stolen devices to a black market dealer, who buys them at a very low price because he knows they're stolen. Despite Monty's frustration, he doesn't argue. The dealer tells Monty about a house belonging to a retired military leader named Norman and mentions that he supposedly has a large sum of money at home. Monty suggests the idea of robbing this house to his friends, explaining that Norman was a former high-ranking military official who retired and received $1 million settlement after his daughter died in an accident caused by the daughter of a wealthy family. Monty is sure the money is in the house, so he proposes they rob it, especially since he learned that the house is secured by Alex's father's company, meaning they can easily get the keys and enter. Though Monty and Rocky are enthusiastic, Alex is hesitant and rejects the idea, pointing out that the amount they're planning to steal is over $100,000, which would make it a serious crime. He decides not to join them and leaves. Later, Rocky returns to her house, where she lives with her mother and stepfather, and it becomes clear that they treat her harshly and make her spend money on them. This fuels Rocky's desire to leave as soon as possible and take her younger sister with her. Meanwhile, Alex is thinking over the robbery, and after some consideration, he decides to join to help Rocky get away. He sends her a message, agreeing to the job, which makes Rocky happy, and she tells her sister that they'll soon be heading to California. The next day, the three meet up in front of Norman's house. Monty goes to scout the area, and during this time, Alex notices a new tattoo on Rocky's hand and asks her why she got a tattoo of a beetle. Rocky explains that her father left when she was young, and since then, her mother started to hate her, feeling that her husband left because of their daughter and her responsibilities. Rocky shares that when she cried out of missing her father, her mother would lock her in the car trunk, which filled her with fear and loneliness. While locked in the trunk, she found a little beetle that became her only friend, helping her pass the time and calm her fears. Because of that, she decided to tattoo a beetle on her hand, so she would never feel alone. Alex is touched by her story and tells her he has decided to travel with them after the job. She's thrilled, knowing they won't have to part. At that moment, Manny returns after scouting the area, and suddenly they find a dog attacking their car. They realize that this is Norman's dog, and they also discover that Norman is blind. Manny tells them he learned that Norman lost his sight in the Iraq War, which makes them believe their mission will be much easier. They decide to come back at night to carry out the robbery. In the evening, they gather outside Norman's house, and the first thing they do is sedate the dog so they can enter the house. They successfully get inside after the dog falls asleep. When they try to open the door, they discover that Norman has changed the lock. They then attempt to open the basement door but find it locked from the inside. Rocky notices a nearby window without any metal bars, so she decides to climb through it to enter the house and unlock the door for her friends. Alex hesitates at first because he's worried about her, but she reassures him, telling him she'll be fine. Rocky climbs through the window, finds the alarm system, and disables it, then opens the back door and lets them in. Once they're inside, they take off their shoes to move quietly through the house. Manny enters Norman's room and finds the TV playing videos of Norman's daughter when she was young. Manny releases a cloud of knockout gas in the room so Norman will pass out, allowing them to move through the house with ease. They start searching the house for the money until they find a door to a room locked with multiple locks. Manny is certain the money is in that room, so he pulls out a gun to break the lock. Alex objects to what Manny is doing and warns him that it's dangerous and could wake up Norman. But Manny doesn't care about what Alex says, so Alex decides to back out of the operation and leaves. Manny then fires a shot to break the lock, but at that moment, Norman appears and asks who is in his house. Manny panics and threatens Norman with the gun, telling him he's armed and could kill him. But Norman keeps approaching him calmly until he gets close enough to overpower him and take the gun, then threatens him and asks how many people are in the house. Manny tells him he entered alone, and in seconds, Norman fires a shot that hits Manny in the head, killing him instantly. All of this happens while Rocky stands there in terror, watching what's going on and trying not to make any noise so Norman won't know she's there. She moves cautiously until she reaches the closet. As Alex had left the house, he heard another gunshot, different from the one Manny had fired at the door, which made him worried. He received a message from Rocky, telling him that Manny was dead. This prompted him to return to the house again to save Rocky, who was still hiding in the wardrobe room. When Rocky entered the room, she saw Norman open part of the wall, revealing a safe behind it, then enter a code to ensure the money was still inside. Rocky watched the scene and memorized the safe's code. Alex arrived to rescue Rocky, and upon entering the house, he was startled to find Norman in front of him. He quickly ducked and hid in the bathroom. Norman followed him inside and blocked the broken bathroom window with a large wooden plank, which allowed Alex to quietly exit and go to Rocky's room. She opened the safe using the code, took all the money into a bag, and told Alex they needed to escape quickly. However, when they exited, they found Norman standing right in front of them, dragging Manny's body. Sensing movement around him, Norman started firing his gun wildly until he heard Manny's phone ring, at which point he fired at it, breaking it. After pulling Manny's body into the kitchen, Alex and Rocky moved toward the broken door to escape. Then they realized it led down to the basement, so they descended to try to escape through the basement door. Once down there, they found a girl tied up and restrained. As soon as she saw them, she let out a muffled scream, as her mouth was gagged, and signaled for them to rescue her. She showed them a newspaper article that revealed her as Cindy, the girl who had killed Norman's daughter. Rocky quickly realized that Norman had kidnapped Cindy as revenge for his daughter's death. Cindy pointed to the safe, so Rocky decided to open it using the same code she had used for the money safe. Inside, she found a set of keys, which she used to free Cindy from her restraints. Meanwhile, Norman discovered 2 pairs of shoes in his house, which meant there was another person besides Manny. He quickly returned to the money safe, and when he opened it, he found it empty. At that moment, Norman heard the sound of Cindy's bell, which was set to ring in the first floor whenever she moved beyond a certain distance, and realized that the other person was in the basement. He rushed down as fast as he could. When Alex opened the basement door, he was shocked to see Norman in front of him, who fired his weapon at him. The shot grazed part of Alex's ear but hit Cindy in the head, instantly killing her in a pool of blood. Upon bumping into Cindy's body and realizing he had killed her, Norman broke down and resolved to destroy the intruders who had ruined his life. First, he locked the basement door that opened onto the garden to prevent them from escaping. Then he shattered the basement lights to keep them from seeing him, making it easier for him to locate them. Sure enough, Norman managed to pinpoint their locations from the loud noises Alex and Rocky made as they bumped into tools and objects around them in the dark. He caught Alex and threatened him with his gun. When he was about to shoot him, he discovered the gun was out of bullets. Alex took advantage of the moment, pushing him down onto one of the shelves. At the last moment, Alex managed to escape the basement with Rocky, and they locked the door, trapping Norman inside. When the dog wakes up and stands in front of them, Rocky quietly moves to open the door with the key she has, but within seconds, they see the dog charging at them. They run quickly until they find themselves trapped in a room with all windows sealed by iron bars, and the only escape is through a ventilation shaft. Alex tells Rocky to escape through it while he secures the place. Rocky manages to crawl into the vent and escape just as the dog breaks into the room with Alex. Alex has no choice but to break one of the windows and jump out, avoiding a terrible death by the fierce dog. He lands on a glass window on the first floor and loses consciousness from the impact. Meanwhile, the dog enters the vent, chasing Rocky, who has no choice but to throw herself from a high place, falling on her head and passing out. Alex regains consciousness and realizes the glass he's on is about to break. Before he can move, he sees Norman standing in front of him by the window with a gun in his hand, despite having no bullets left. Norman fires at the glass, breaking it, and Alex falls to the first floor. Alex crawls into the kitchen and tries to hold his breath so Norman won't know where he is, but eventually, Norman discovers his location. A big fight ensues between Alex and Norman, which Norman wins despite being blind. Norman uses garden shears to stab Alex, ending his life. Meanwhile, Rocky starts to wake up, and just as she's about to exit the vent outside, she's pulled back inside by Norman, who drags her into the house again and knocks her out. When Rocky regains consciousness, she finds herself tied up and trapped in the basement, the same place where Cindy was kept. She watches Norman as he preserves Cindy's body in a strange black substance and buries her in a box under the basement floor. He tells Rocky that no one can understand the pain he feels from losing his daughter. That's why he kidnapped Cindy, forcing her to carry a child to replace his lost daughter, promising to release her after she gives birth. Cindy was pregnant, but due to their home invasion, he accidentally killed her and lost his child with her. Now he tells Rocky that she will take Cindy's place and bear him a child through artificial insemination to replace the one she caused him to lose. Just before Norman approaches her, he's struck hard in the face. It's revealed that Alex is still alive and that Norman stabbed Manny's body instead. Alex fights Norman until he's exhausted, then frees Rocky, who begins hitting Norman furiously in retaliation for what he planned to do to her. She grabs the money bag and heads out of the house. Suddenly, Alex is shot in the back. The shooter is none other than Norman, who managed to free himself and follow them outside. Alex dies, but Rocky manages to open the door and escape the house. Thinking she has finally escaped Norman, Rocky is startled by his dog running after her. She sprints with all her might until she reaches her car. At the last second, she drops the money bag just before getting into the car. She shuts herself inside to escape the dog, eventually trapping it in the car trunk. But the dog is strong and ferocious, breaking free and attacking Rocky inside the car. In a desperate move, she fastens her seatbelt, opens the car door, and exits quickly, locking the dog inside before it can reach her. Rocky retrieves the bag, but before she can leave, she sees Norman standing behind her, pulling her by her hair and dragging her back to the house. At that moment, Rocky sees the remote for the alarm system in Alex's hand, takes it, and activates the alarm. This disorients Norman, making him unable to move or locate Rocky. She seizes the opportunity and pushes him into the basement. Norman fires a shot from his gun but ends up seriously wounded. Rocky finally feels relieved, believing she has defeated Norman. She takes the money and runs away from the place, hearing the police sirens approaching due to the alarm. A few days later, we see Rocky with her sister at the bus station, ready to leave for California. Rocky notices a news report about Norman, the blind ex-soldier whose house was invaded by two burglars, both of whom he killed on his own despite being blind. She realizes that Norman is still alive and is recovering, and he told the media that nothing was stolen from his home. Rocky is frightened by the news but takes her sister and leaves the city, determined to start a new life, far from the hardships she endured. And that's where today's movie ends. If you enjoyed today's movie, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.